Night Dive Studios has carved a niche for itself as the premier purveyor of classic game resurrections. They've breathed new life into forgotten gems and cult classics, consistently delivering polished remasters that honor the source material while updating it for modern audiences. Their latest endeavor, The Thing Remastered, continues this tradition, tackling a game that, while ambitious for its time, was ultimately hampered by technical limitations and questionable design choices. This review will delve into the depths of this icy Antarctic horror, examining both the chilling brilliance of its premise and the frustrating flaws that prevent it from fully realizing its potential. The Thing Remastered is based on the 2002 game of the same name, a sequel to John Carpenter's iconic 1982 film, The Thing. The movie, a masterpiece of paranoia and body horror, left audiences with an ambiguous ending, leaving ample room for speculation and further exploration. The game, however, takes a decidedly less subtle approach. Instead of a delicate dance around the mysteries of the original, it charges headfirst into the aftermath, attempting to build upon the established lore with a heavy hand. The game's narrative picks up shortly after the events of the film. You assume the role of Captain J.F. Blake, a special forces operative with a late 90s hairstyle that defies the Antarctic climate. Blake leads a team of soldiers to investigate the ruins of US Outpost 31, the site of the movie's gruesome events. The initial stages of the game are surprisingly restrained, allowing players to soak in the atmosphere and explore the remnants of the research facility. These moments are a nostalgic trip for fans of the film, offering glimpses of familiar locations and hinting at the horrors that transpired. However, this restraint is short-lived. The game quickly abandons the slow burn tension of the film in favor of a more action-oriented approach. This isn't inherently a bad thing, as the game does manage to deliver some thrilling set pieces, but it does mark a significant departure from the source material. The story, unfortunately, is where the game truly stumbles. It's a narrative that feels more like a parody of a Thing sequel than a genuine attempt to expand upon the mythos. The dialogue is cheesy, the characters are one-dimensional, and the plot twists are telegraphed from miles away. It's a far cry from the nuanced storytelling of the film, and it's a testament to the low standards of video game narratives in the early 2000s. One of the most touted features of The Thing was its trust-fear system, a mechanic designed to simulate the paranoia and uncertainty that defined the film. The idea was that any member of your squad could be a thing in disguise, and you, as the player, would have to manage their fear levels and monitor their behavior to determine who to trust. In theory, this system had the potential to be groundbreaking. It could have created a dynamic and unpredictable gameplay experience where every interaction was fraught with tension. In practice, however, the system is deeply flawed. The fear aspect is the most functional, but even it is poorly implemented. Squad mates become agitated when exposed to gore and dead bodies, which are plentiful throughout the game. This makes it difficult to gauge when you're in a fear zone, and often leads to frustrating situations where your squad mates are perpetually on edge. There are a few moments of it impacting gameplay, but they are few and far between. The reviewer mentions that they completed the game without ever letting a squad member reach maximum fear, suggesting that it's possible to entirely bypass this aspect of the system. The trust system, on the other hand, is almost entirely pointless. Gaining a squad mate's trust is as simple as giving them ammunition, regardless of your actions or behavior. They'll only start to distrust you if you repeatedly shoot them, and even then, their trust is easily regained. The game also fails to create any meaningful interaction between squad mates in terms of trust. They always trust each other unless the plot dictates otherwise, undermining the very premise of the system. The most significant failing of the system is its inability to create genuine tension. You play as a generic, almost superhuman protagonist, and your squad mates are interchangeable and devoid of personality. Their transformations into things are predictable and easily dealt with, thanks to your teammates' instant recognition and firepower. The lack of consequences for a squad mate's transformation further diminishes the impact of the system. While the trust-fear system falls flat, The Thing does offer some redeeming qualities in its combat. It's a third-person shooter with a focus on action, but it incorporates some interesting environmental elements that add a layer of strategy. The Thing creatures come in various forms, from small, scuttling head-like creatures to larger, more imposing beasts. While the smaller ones can be dispatched with conventional firearms, the larger ones require the use of fire. This is where the game's environmental mechanics come into play. Fire spreads realistically, igniting wooden objects and creating makeshift barriers. You can use fire to block off entrances, create kill zones, and even trap enemies. However, fire can also get out of control, requiring the use of a fire extinguisher to prevent it from engulfing the environment. The ability to manipulate doors adds another layer of tactical depth. You can open and close most doors, using them to funnel enemies, create choke points, or temporarily seal off areas. These mechanics, combined with the use of grenades, offer a surprisingly robust combat system for a game of this era. It's a shame that the game's other systems don't reach the same level of polish. While the core gameplay of The Thing remains largely unchanged, Night Dive Studios has worked their magic on the game's technical aspects. The remaster boasts a significant visual upgrade, bringing the game's dated graphics into the modern era. The most noticeable improvement is the lighting. Night Dive has added a plethora of dynamic lighting effects, enhancing the atmosphere and creating a more immersive experience. The game still retains its early 2000s aesthetic, but it's a far cry from the muddy textures and flat lighting of the original. The character models have also received a facelift, although they still retain a certain degree of stiffness. Performance is another area where the remaster shines. The game runs flawlessly with high frame rates and smooth gameplay. This is a welcome change from the original, which was plagued by performance issues. Night Dive has also updated the controls, making them more responsive and intuitive for modern players. While the technical improvements are commendable, the remaster is somewhat lacking in terms of extra content. The bonus materials are limited to the original game trailer and a small collection of concept art. This is a missed opportunity, especially considering the game's troubled development history. It would have been interesting to see behind-the-scenes footage, developer interviews, or other insights into the making of the game. Despite the remaster's technical polish, it's still riddled with bugs and glitches. Some of these are likely carryovers from the original game, while others may have been introduced in the remastering process. The reviewer notes that many of these glitches are more humorous than game-breaking, but they do detract from the overall experience. One particularly memorable glitch involves a squadmate's vomiting animation playing incorrectly during a cutscene, resulting in a rather disturbing display of bodily fluids. While amusing, these glitches are a reminder of the game's inherent jankiness. The Thing, Remastered, is a difficult game to recommend unequivocally. It's a flawed classic with a myriad of issues, from its poorly written narrative to its deeply flawed trust-fear system. However, it's also a game with a unique premise, some surprisingly engaging combat mechanics, and a healthy dose of early 2000s nostalgia. Night Dive Studios has done an admirable job of polishing the game's technical aspects, but they couldn't fix the underlying design flaws. This is a game that's more interesting for its ambition than its execution. It's a fascinating study in what could have been, a glimpse into a world where a game based on The Thing fully realized its potential. If you're a fan of the film and can tolerate a healthy dose of jank, The Thing, Remastered, is worth experiencing. It's a game that will frustrate you as often as it entertains you, but it's a unique and memorable experience nonetheless. Just don't expect it to live up to the brilliance of its source material. It's a testament to Night Dive's dedication that they're willing to tackle even the most flawed of games, and for that they deserve our applause. This remaster is a labor of love, even if the object of that affection is a bit of a mess. It's a game that's best appreciated for its historical significance and its ambition, rather than its flawless execution. It's a flawed gem, but a gem nonetheless, and one that's worth unearthing, if only to marvel at its strange and imperfect beauty.